Preparing to live stream this meeting. Setting up the meeting for YouTube Live.
The content of this meeting is being sent to a third party.
Done redirecting to YouTube.
I mean, I hope it's being sent to a third party because that would mean people are actually watching. Uh,
Now this is tricky. It seems to be showing. Do I need to do something to make it show a split screen versus
I do not know. Is it just doing speaker?
it's just doing speaker and rotating between us, which doesn't show Legos. Um,
I
so I'm not
mean,
sure.
could the Lego make some noise or something?
Rattle, rattle, rattle. Um,
I don't know.
okay, I switched it to gallery mode. Has fixed it. So yeah,
There we go.
I'm a seasoned IT something or other.
Get the technical stuff out of the way before we start.
Yeah, yeah, everything's great. Everything is great. I'll drop this.
Asterisk.
I'll put this in there. All right, now I'll roll over here and I'll rotate my Mac 45 degrees and we'll see if that more or less works. More or less works.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have some very giant Lego sets to build that I literally don't know where they will go in my tiny apartment. And I was like, well, can't buy any Lego sets until I figure that out. And those have sat unopened for months. And then I was walking through Target and this was like on sale, which is to say $4 off or something like that. A Lego on sale. I was like, oh. Bo-Katan Kryze, Grogu. I don't have them. I have a Mandalorian. But like, yeah, Spider Tank. And that was in that one episode of Mandalorian, for in ways that was never totally explained. That looks like maybe a fun set to build. So I bought a Spider Tank. So
And you get a dark saber as well,
yeah, and a dark saber. So everything's great.
which you can give to Bo-Katan and she can go off and have her own series.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. That makes me curious. Where are you on your? 'Cause there's a new Star Wars show. Have you watched the new Star Wars show,
I
James?
am up to date on the new Star Wars show and I
Excellent.
enjoyed it. It feels very sort of Amblin entertainment, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yep, that's not a bad
Um,
thing. My non-spoiler review is I enjoyed it as well. It's fun, lighthearted kid Star Wars. And if you
yeah,
don't like that, I don't know, something something. I guess I mean, as with all Star Wars, there were people that were mad about stuff like before anything had even aired. There were people mad that there's like, and the things that Star Wars people get mad about are the most ridiculous things. So people were mad that there were suburbs in Star Wars. Um, People were mad about how one of the characters, who's an alien that's been depicted a little bit, mainly in legend stuff, is depicted in terms of like, consistency there. Dan, we're talking about people being mad about Star Wars.
Tony,
Um,
there's argument as to whether or not it's even the same species.
I've
really
seen people
great.
saying it's not the same
I
species,
In fact,
like
but
I
technically, the
uh,
people who make the show say it's not.
really
yeah,
wow.
it's just a different alien
That looks like.
elephanty
Okay.
creature.
I like how you immediately knew what we were
Oh
talking
yeah, I mean,
about.
please. I was just editing our podcast. That's why.
Oh, okay. So yeah.
Well,
Um,
yes, I have, I am not well, I was going to say I'm not a terrible person. I may be a terrible person, but not about Star Wars.
Not about Star Wars.
You're a terrible
So
person for different reasons, James.
Mm,
yes,
mm, mm.
so yes, I mean, I like
Dan, I hear
most.
your child napping peacefully in the background.
Oh, good. That makes it through. Excellent.
Yeah. Um,
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. This is just normal weekend stuff.
Yes, just this is normal. Okay, anybody out there who has a child will understand that when a
Yeah, okay.
two-year-old is you're trying to get a two-year-old to take a nap. Sometimes they're screaming.
Um, so this
Well,
is I bought this set mainly for the minifigs, and this is the Grogu minifig, which is very, very tiny and kind of interesting because it's like kind of the proportions of a minifig, but maybe like I don't know, a quarter the scale and doesn't have moving parts in the same way, I guess because it's so small, but like his little head is so tiny. I mean, compared to, also I think it's weird that they gave the Mandalorian a face.
Well, he has a face. We've seen his face.
Okay, but like pretty rarely. A lot of
Yeah,
the
but
a
Does
lot of the
Pedro
Boba
get
Fett.
residuals for Lego minifigs?
I probably depends on his contract. I mean, a lot of the like Boba Fett minifigs are just like a black sphere. So yeah,
well, they can't afford to the likeness rights for Tamara Morrison
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
So
He really
um,
plays hard to get, that guy.
yeah.
um, yeah. I mean, I remember that episode. I remember the kind of like dark sabers going back and forward and
hmm
some um arguments over same, like whether the alien that was piloting the spider tank technically should have the dark saber now.
Yeah. Oh, the one true king of Mandalore. That
Yes,
thing.
I mean,
That
that's
like
always
eye.
fun.
That eye thing. So yeah. So
yeah, I'm just saying that, rules are rules.
Crap, we really got it on technicality there.
Star Wars.
Yeah. I like the fact that there were suburbs in the Star Wars show. I thought it was the right level of kind of like, here's some kids on bikes in a
Yeah.
suburb. Um,
If you've
I don't
got
know.
cities, you're gonna have suburbs.
You're gonna have suburbs.
Sorry, that's just how it works.
I don't know. I liked it. I was gonna say like, I don't get upset about things about Star Wars, but then I realized I mainly have a podcast where it's me and Dan and Kat getting upset about things about Star Wars, and that's recorded and released. So my claim to that is, but I'm
Dubious
only
at best.
yeah, I'm only upset about sophisticated things about Star Wars. Right, Dan?
Sure.
Sure.
Name a sophisticated thing that you are upset about.
Oh no, Dan,
Yeah,
I've
you
been
caught you
called
in a
out.
trap there.
Yeah, I can't think of anything. I'm a garbage monster. I don't know, like when a story is bad, or confusing,
that-
yeah, that's I don't know. I'm not mad about other things. I'm not mad
right.
about Star Wars that I haven't seen yet. That's the main thing. Is I reserve my judgment for actually watching the show. A thing I think many Star Wars fans do not do, because maybe they're not actually Star Wars fans. They're just
Just-
angry people that were seeking some kind of outlet.
Yes.
So.
Well, have you seen any other shows that you're angry about or not angry about?
I'm almost done with Arcane, which I very much enjoy.
I've started that, but I'm not far into it yet. But
Okay.
from what I see, it seems pretty good, and I care not a jot about League of Legends.
I literally know nothing about League of Legends, but I enjoy Arcane. I think it's one of the better animated shows I've ever seen. So yeah, that's very good. I don't know. Do I watch other things? I probably watch other things.
Have you watched Silo? Any of?
I am caught up on Silo. I enjoy Silo. I think Dan told me to watch Silo. Is that right, Dan? I don't know.
Dan is gone.
Oh, Dan left. Haha. I'm looking at the screen. I feel like Dan probably told me to watch Silo, and that maybe I caught up on season 1 after it had already aired. But I have been following season 2 as it airs, and I'm very much enjoying season 2 of Silo. It's pretty good science fiction. It definitely. I feel like there's that thing where you can tell when a show is based on a book because it's just like it's more thoughtful than other things. I don't know. So yeah, I'm enjoying Silo. What about you?
Yeah, I haven't read the book, so I
Same.
don't have a sense of where it's going. But it scratches some of the same itch as the Fallout games and things like that, without the actual much going outside bits.
Yeah.
And yeah, I kind of like it is intriguing enough to, figure out what is actually happening, and I like the fact that the show I wouldn't say enjoys, but seems to kill off a lot of its characters.
Yes.
It's like, I like this character.
Too bad. Yes. So I don't know. There's a character introduced in the second season that I find very amusing and enjoyable. So yeah. I
Yes.
mean, not that it's it is not a light, happy show. It is a things are a dystopia kind of show, but I enjoy it. Oh.
I think it's the dystopia kind of show that it is um far enough away from actual dystopia currently
Yeah, not
happening
not our
that you can
dystopia.
enjoy it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a fictional dystopia. There's a comfort in that
yes.
compared to, you know, our world. So,
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think. Other than that, I recently got a subscription to Dropout TV, which is, I think it's the old College Humor people spun
oh,
off into this thing, and it's where Dimension 20 and things like that lives.
oh, okay.
You know,
I've heard of Dimension 20. I've never actually watched it. I know is Dimension 20 like a spin-off of Critical Role or unrelated?
I
Uh,
think it's unrelated, although I think there might be some like
Crossover
I think
actors.
Matthew Mercer's been on Dimension
Got it.
20 and things
So
like that.
Dimension 20 is a actual play. Is it? I don't know if
Yes.
it's D&D or if it's another system, but
I believe it's
it's a
D&D.
role-playing game show.
Brennan Lee Mulligan is the main DM who
Mhm.
is so I opened it and it was like, and here are like 30 seasons of various things, each episode 4 hours long. And I looked at it and I
Mhm.
thought, well, I'm not watching that just yet.
Yeah.
But the other thing that they do is they have a number of sort of effectively game shows. And
Hmm.
there's one called Game Changer, which
Hmm.
is not a million miles away from Taskmaster
Hmm.
in terms of its so generally three comedians from their stable of comedians. And but the difference is with this, they turn up in the studio and they don't actually know what the rules of the game are, and the rules of the game change each episode.
Hence the name of the game.
And they've done some very elaborate ones where, like, one that I remember is they are hanging out in the green room before the recording of the show, and then they go to open the door and the door is locked, and
Oh
they
no.
basically there's a 60-minute countdown, and they are told that there is a bomb in the thing, and they built this very elaborate escape room within the gate within the green room,
Mhm.
and so this is things like that where they like as certainly in the later seasons, it is very more elaborate than it is in the early seasons. And
Mhm.
indeed, the pandemic season in the middle, where they're all on Zoom and the audio and video quality is
Oh, geez.
terrible.
Oh.
um, but it's entertaining, and there's enough of it on YouTube that I would recommend. There's like I think a half dozen episodes on YouTube.
Oh, cool.
It's worth a go and see if it scratches the Taskmaster itch.
I would like more having the season of Taskmaster concluded, and I am caught up on like I expanded to New Zealand and Australian Taskmaster, which they conveniently were just putting on YouTube on the same YouTube channel as the UK Taskmaster, and I'm now kind of out of Taskmaster, so
Ha-
I need
Have
more
you
Taskmaster.
seen Junior Taskmaster, which
I
is also
watched
running?
one episode of it. I mean, I thought it was good for what it was trying to do, but maybe it wasn't for me. I think you could kind of imagine Junior Taskmaster is basically Taskmaster, but with children. It is a little bit more game showy in that uh, there's an elimination component. But it turns out I find professional comedians more entertaining than small children.
I
Um,
think that is
Unprofessional children,
unprofessional children.
I think that
amateur
is
children.
Yeah.
fair.
The
There
children
was
are very, I mean, I feel like they have selected the most precocious children available in the United Kingdoms. They're pretty good, but it's still a very different kind of show than
it seems
Taskmaster.
like they have selected on a certain degree of personality
Yeah.
slash neurodiversity
Yeah,
amongst their children.
they are like extremely and maybe they're too young to be theater kids, but future theater kids. Yeah.
I did
So
Future
watch an
theater
episode.
kids of the United Kingdom.
yeah.
Yes.
Sounds like a charity, perhaps. I don't know.
I thought the hosts, who are two previous Taskmaster panelists, were like the right vibe for being hosts on a children's Taskmaster, where they're, it's not the same belittling people as Taskmaster, but it is like
I think
Tasker
you
silly.
I don't think you really want to make them cry on
No.
camera. That's not the vibe that they're going for. In one of the recent episodes which I watched last night, there was a Glaswegian girl who won very by a large margin, and I did like her, and I was like, you have the right kind of stuff, because she was treating them in a way that you might imagine a small Glaswegian child to do.
Oh no.
But yeah, uh, Game Changer and all the associated shows around that is really what I've been doing for my
Mhm.
Taskmaster fill. But I've watched like the 5 or 6 seasons of that over the course of the last 2 weeks,
Wow.
and possibly burnt out slightly as a result.
I have some family who really like that. I've never watched any of it, but
It's interesting because it's like they have this big stable of comedians, like, I don't know, whatever it is, 16, 20 comedians, and then they cycle in people. And those people also turn up in the D&D actual play, and they turn up in the other things. It's kind of like The Incomparable, only with a bigger budget.
I feel like we should have a bigger budget, but
It would be hard to
nobody's
go the other
asked
way.
us yet.
Well, I think if we all like worked in Los Angeles in one large recording studio,
Deal breaker.
I don't think it has to be Los Angeles, but yeah.
Oh, thank God for that.
I mean, like, we could have probably pulled off something like this when we were in Portland, but yes, speaking of which, I need to rewatch our D&D from Portland.
Yeah. We played live in-person D&D in Portland
a year ago.
over a year ago. This is actually and we started an adventure which we did not finish, which is how it traditionally works. And then Erica told me I needed to finish the adventure before I'm allowed to start another adventure.
Wow.
So we have to wrap that adventure up.
That's
Well,
some big parent energy there.
She's the
Parent, producer, same thing.
So she's got what she says goes. But it is tricky where this is. I thought about it. The longest gap between sessions we've ever done in an adventure, even longer than our thing that was basically a joke, which was we 100 years ago wanted to run like a Halloween special, and we started a Halloween adventure and we didn't finish it. And the joke was like, well, we'll just come back next Halloween and finish it. And then we did that.
But then we did it 2 more times.
And then we did it 2 more times with different adventures. So we played, a Halloween adventure that was literally each recording session was spaced out a full year, which is not a good way to do things. This is funny and random. Like this including multiple bits of things, there's 2 Darksabers.
Oh no!
Oh,
that solves a lot of problems.
That's like a theological dilemma.
Yeah. Also, there's all the little bits that are always left over. There's also this, which makes me think that I've forgotten the piece somewhere. So I'm just gonna flip back through the rules and look at that.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? I figured it out. Yeah.
Yeah, so and I think the recording that we have of that session is a 360-degree.
It's a 360-degree video.
We will not be doing that again.
No, we're not doing that again. I started prepping the adventure, and it's very weird because I prepped and ran it as a in-person adventure, right? I had a vinyl map, and I had miniatures, and what I didn't have was any of the digital assets for anything set up. So it's like, I don't have tokens, I don't have maps for this ready to go. And it's like, this is an adventure that I started, but don't have any of the stuff from it. Also, I'll be honest, I did not take great notes for an adventure that I would have to continue like 16 months later. Thankfully it's recorded. I'll just go and just watch the recording again. But yeah.
What I like,
understanding there would be no tests.
Yeah.
What I like is the fact that my character has been in future adventures at a higher level.
You know how I feel about time stream continuity issues. So
yeah, so Nyasa cannot die. This is really what I hear.
No, it's parallel universe, man.
Yeah,
multiverse.
Well,
bad things happen to multiverse characters all the time.
Yeah, didn't you see Deadpool versus Wolverine? Like
Hmm.
basically everyone who's a parallel thing gets in trouble, so that could be you. Um,
Well,
I do have I have a character that I've played now in multiple adventures who I think in my head canonically like jumps around in time and is like
okay.
kind of out of time. Uh,
hmm
and I enjoy that aspect
Who has
of
appeared
like
in both podcast and non-podcast
and
stuff.
non-podcast, correct. And so I have in my head a very complicated continuity about how that all
Do you have a
makes sense,
time? Do
but
you have a timeline, Dan?
it's rough. It's a rough timeline, but
hmm
well,
I've been playing that character for like more than a decade in various instances, and I just enjoy that they pop up every once in a while in like a different, sometimes a different like level, sometimes a different reality, like totally different campaign setting. I find that a lot of fun.
well, I built Nyasa in Baldur's Gate 3 and played through that entire game as her.
Mm.
So she's had another, several hundred hours of adventures.
Just so we're
Um,
clear, that's not canon.
well, you know, I think the Baldur's Gate 3 tops out at level 12, and I think Nyasa's probably 11 at this point.
Mm,
So, maybe that's a future timeline, but
okay.
uh but yeah, I oh my top tip to you both is that if you have Amazon Prime, they have the Mac versions of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 currently as a giveaway.
Oh wow.
Um,
I
so
don't think I've ever played either of
Uh,
those.
Are
no,
those
neither have I.
playable in, I was gonna ask, are they enjoyable in this modern era? I feel like I
I
sometimes get burned where it's like, oh, this is a classic game, and I'm like, the controls for this are abysmal, and
I I
it doesn't have save games, and it's, there's all those things we kind of take
Yeah,
for
Baldur's Gate
granted.
as a platformer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
platformer.
I know that this is a like a sort of remastery type thing that they
Okay,
did, or at
that's what I
least
wanted.
it probably runs and lets you save and do
That's
things.
yeah. I mean, I have accidentally bought like old games where it's like I can't actually run this because it needs something to like scale stuff down in order to not run at some insane speed because it was not pegged to run on basically anything other than the hardware that it was released on at the time. So that's always fun.
I know some of the Baldur's Gate 3 people are in the previous games, like
Mhm.
Minsk and Jahira. So I'm curious to go back and see how they are in.
I just opened it and I am amused. So these are the top four games listed, I guess, which are tied in with their weird video game thing they're doing, TV
Mhm.
show, whatever.
Oh, Control, which or Secret Level. Secret Level
Secret
comes out
level, yeah. So
Yes.
the top listed games there are The Outer Worlds, which is actually fairly new. I think that came out
Yeah,
what, 3 or 4 years ago.
I think it's an Obsidian game, and it's
Yes,
basically Fallout on steroids in that
Yeah.
your level progression is extremely fast, and it's a short
I
adventure.
know. I think I know someone who did some writing for that. Mega Man 11. Didn't
Okay.
really know we were there. Warhammer 40K, Space Marine, and then a
Yes.
game called Spelunky, which I look
Spelunky's
at.
like
I know
Okay,
of.
that was a
I look at
hit,
the
like
art and I was
Steam.
like, "This is Indiana Jones with the serial numbers filed off, right?" Because
Yeah,
it's
it was
literally
like
a
a
guy in a fedora and there's like robbing a treasure chest and there's a snake.
Yeah, I mean,
My
I think it was like a celebration of old-timey 2D platformers like 10 years ago,
I
basically.
think it was incredibly difficult, and it's one of those games that you sort of walk 2 paces and then a snake falls on your head, and you go, well, I shall not
Oh, die
do
and redo
that.
it again. Yes,
Yeah.
okay. That's like a what was it? Outer Limits? Was that or Out of This World? Out of
Out of
This
this world,
World.
or
Yes.
sometimes
Another
released as
World.
Another World,
Yes.
depending
Yeah.
on those are both. It was marketed under different
That was
names.
just a brutal game where it's like you
Yes,
just died and then you had to learn what you did wrong and then it was just trial and
just
error essentially.
just like life,
Yeah.
Dan.
Yes.
Eh. But in real
Um,
life, there is no reset button. I will say, in addition to Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2, I noticed they also have the enhanced edition of Neverwinter Nights, a game I did play, which is actually pretty fun. It's a very D&D experience game. I think the biggest problem with that game is that it uses like I want to say like 3.5
3.5.
rule set, and it's
Yeah.
just like ugh, I don't like that rule set. All right, sure, I'll claim some games here.
So I was somewhat interested in this secret level anthology video thing that they have coming out from Amazon. I believe it's from the same people as Love, Death, and Robots, which was a Netflix
yes, I believe
video.
so.
animation anthology, which, it was an anthology, so it was hit or miss. It also definitely had, it was these kind of short animated things. I think sometimes as short as 10 minutes, sometimes as long as 20. Some of them really light on plot, as you sometimes get with those kind of things. Some of them, I think they had some big name sci-fi people come in, or they adapted
Yeah,
existing
John
short
Scalzi, I think,
stories.
worked on one of them.
Yeah, so some of them are real good. I heard that at least I saw at one kind of preliminary review of Secret Level that said that it's not great. I know there was a lot of noise about one of the shorts is about a game that came out and has basically already been canceled from
Yeah,
some
it came out.
live service game
Oh,
that
Concord,
exploded.
yeah.
Yeah, it came out. What they spent like whatever 100 million on it. Came out, lasted 2 weeks. They pulled the
God.
plug and then laid everyone off and it's closed the
Ah.
studio. And then yeah, we get to
But we
see.
still get the promotional materials from it that they made, way back a deal for a year ago. Um,
Yeah, the other thing that's coming out tomorrow, so possibly at midnight, is the Indiana Jones game.
I saw
Which-
some early reviews of that were not super positive.
Oh, I saw some really positive ones.
Okay,
I saw
interesting.
ones that said it reminded them of the Arcane
Okay.
games.
I saw one that was basically like the story is wonderful, the gameplay is the worst thing in the world. So
I mean, I feel like every game review, like hot take, we're gonna
Hot
jump
takes.
into games journalism.
this is I
It's
mean
about it's about truth in games journalism.
Yeah.
So, I do think there is an element of needing to be extremes, right? And this is
Yeah,
true in a
I
lot of
hate it.
review stuff where it's like it's either got to be the best or the worst. Like people don't a lot of at least the stuff that grabs headlines is like this is terrible or this is
Mhm.
amazing. Whereas the stuff, and I saw some nuanced takes that were like these things are really good about it, and there's some things in here that are not as good, but like I still really enjoyed it or whatever. And it's like those are the kind of takes I want. Like I've been playing. I
you
have
don't need something that's a headline that's like this is a war
Yes.
crime.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I mean, there are Nazis, so there probably are war crimes.
Okay,
I
but
mean,
the existence of the game is
Fair.
You know.
I'm still working my way through Star Wars Outlaws, which I've been playing on and off
Mhm.
for months now, and I enjoy it. It's like, I mean, I can only play like an hour at a go.
Okay, and that got
Sometimes
somewhat
between.
mixed reviews, right? People
it
didn't-
has several patches since then that have
They-
attempted
they've,
to fix
like,
things,
There was a lot of forced stealth initially, which
Yeah.
they've patched out the game.
which is hard, but I kind of liked as a challenge. So I think that was kind of a cop out in some places, but sure, whatever.
I mean, I
Whatever.
enjoyed that game. It was a lot more like Assassin's Creed
Yeah.
or whatever than I thought it was. And so there's a lot of like sneaking around bases, taking people out one by one, literally crouching in the grass and whistling to call
Yep.
people
Yep.
over.
But
Uh,
it felt very Star Warsy, which I appreciated. I thought they did a great job with the world building. Like I enjoyed that. I enjoyed having a ship I could fly around in space and like dogfight
Yeah.
in, even if I wasn't very good at it.
Mhm.
You know, if anything, my only critiques about it are that it falls the same. You know, it's an Ubisoft game, and therefore it's like you could spend, and I have
You're gonna pick
millions
up
of
a lot
hours
flags.
collecting lots of stupid little stuff that's not
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fun.
But the
Um,
gameplay was fun. The characters were good. The writing was kind of good. Like I actually thought the storyline was pretty solid. Like
And I think it picks up towards the end. I think
Yeah,
it starts fairly slow.
yes,
Okay.
I kept
But-
forgetting. I would run around to do stuff and be like, oh, I guess I should do the main plot again. And then I would go in and be like, oh, this is more interesting
It's like,
than the
oh,
just
I-
run
yeah,
around.
I ran around that sort of early planets for ages,
Yes.
and then they were like, "Why didn't you go up to a space station and do a heist?" And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds
yeah,
good."
please. Yes.
I'd like to
And they're
do
like, you
that.
want to go to another planet? I was like, there's other planet. Cool.
Well, I will definitely check that out at some point. I like Star
It's
Wars.
worth it.
I like
worth it.
Assassin's Creed, so if you were just selling me on an Assassin's Creed Star Wars game, I would.
I mean,
would
that
go
is literally, I would say,
Um,
it is what
it
it
is-
is.
It's pretty much, yeah.
We do live in kind of a weird world as far as gaming right now, where I feel like something can come out and be really janky, and then they patch it and make like I feel like
Yes.
that
Yeah.
Cyberpunk game went from being, which I
Yes.
own but have not played, went from being like this is not playable to like this is a classic game everyone should play over the course of a year, which
Yeah.
is in some ways, I mean, it's impressive that they continue to invest in it, as opposed to say the game we just talked about, where they're like, this was not a hit on week one, therefore we're throwing it out and firing everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing that I played, which I would recommend, is the Dragon Age Veilguard game.
I've heard good things about it.
And it's like it's a fairly solid 8 out of 10 game. The story isn't great at the beginning, but by the last two-thirds of the game, it's really good. And I just enjoy that sort of, running around, saving the world, flirting with your companions, um,
The James
kind of thing.
Thompson way of life. Yep.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
yep.
Um,
Um,
but the gameplay is really good. It plays like a sort of like the modern God of Wars in some ways of
mhm,
things, and um, it feels, I guess, closest in structure to Mass Effect 2, in
mhm.
that you're running around and uh you're doing all these loyalty quests for your companions, and then at the end of the game there's a section where it's like, now who would you like to send off to do this mission?
Mhm.
Who would you like, and
Who
also
will die?
well, that kind of thing. Or you have all these like little cities that you go in, and you can, as you do quests in them, that builds up their like loyalty meters kind of thing. And so if you approach the end of the game and everybody likes you, then you do a lot better. But
Yeah,
I,
Mass Effect 3 style, basically.
yeah.
Mhm.
And it's a perfectly good game. Is it the best
Mhm.
game in the world? No, because that's Baldur's Gate 3. Um,
It's good to know where you stand. Um,
but it's still pretty good, and the characters are like there are some adorable side characters that you come across, and
I wish I had more time for gaming. I definitely kind of feel like I am a fake gamer, at least compared to, in my 20s when I played a lot of games and I had all the systems and was playing everything, was playing things that were good, things that were bad. Whereas now I feel like it's like I have time for things that people I have almost I can almost make time for things that people are like, this is a great classic game. And that is where the games journalism thing where everything is extremes basically makes me feel like I can't trust that. I can only rely on things on recommendations from people I actually know. So I've been listening to a friend of mine created a video game podcast recently, and which was always a thing that I had a hard time finding a video game podcast that I enjoyed because I felt like they were kind of extreme. But I'll plug my friend Caitlin's podcast. All My Best Friends Are Digital is like a very chill kind of like book groupy kind of like this is what I'm playing this week and this is how I feel about it. This is what I like and didn't like about it. That is not like I don't know. It feels real. It does not feel like clickbait, I guess.
Hmm.
So
The
yeah.
thing I was going to say about I am looking forward to playing that Indiana Jones game, but the problem is that it's
Yeah.
Xbox only for the next 2
y-
months, I want to say, and then it comes out on the PS5,
And
which
let's
is
be
a
honest,
new.
you weren't gonna have time to play it for 2 months anyway.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I mean, I have to finish Star Wars Outlaws. I can
yeah.
only play one game at a time, and that game will take me 3 months. So I like basically I play about 4 games a year.
so you have to
Well,
pick
unless
the good ones.
well, unless I sneak in and play something that's shorter. Like earlier this year, I played the Chance of Sonar, which
Mhm.
is like a little
Mm.
puzzle game, and I liked that. I thought it was great, and it took me much less time because it's a much shorter game. I've
Dan
been meaning
is
to play.
testament to our friendship. I bought that game and have not started it.
Excellent, well done. There
Yeah.
was a puzzle game I saw called, I think it's the first one's called Curse of the Golden Idol.
Dan
Oh yes,
also bought that game. Also haven't
Yes,
played it.
haven't played it yet either,
Haven't
but
played
that
it.
one's been on my list of things like shorter puzzle game
Yep.
thing to play, which I enjoy. I like those things that are a little more bite size. Like honestly, the best game I have played in the last decade might be Return of the Obra Dinn.
Hmm.
Like just in
Great
terms
game.
of experience and like the bang for the buck, I really felt like I got out of that game. Like as a high value game. I
James,
loved
have you
Baldur's
played
Gate
Return
3.
from the Obra
My
Dinn?
wife and I played like 120 hours of it
Are
in
you at the
co-op.
end of it?
Oh yeah, we finished it, but we only played it once.
Yeah,
I-
I've played it 4 times. So
Yeah, games don't have that much replayability for me. I think that's my
that
big
one,
struggle.
I think that one does, because there are so many paths through
There are
the
different things you can do.
But
Yeah.
and Dan has talked about this, and I recollect Dan has like, well, I made my path. I'm not interested in seeing the other choices.
Yeah, it's like I
'cause
don't
it's
know. I
like,
want to know the road not traveled. I did my thing.
yeah.
But it's like also what I did by like the third or fourth time through was I installed every single mod that I could find. So I was running around with 10 characters,
Oh my
in
God.
my party, and nothing was actually a challenge, but it meant I could get through the game in like 24 hours, rather than the 100 or whatever. Um,
That is faster. Yep.
and it was just fun to like Minthara is one of the characters that you only get notionally if you're bad, but there are ways to do it. And she's a really good character because she's kind of mean and sarcastic.
So Dan, you have finished both Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. That's pretty good.
That's true. I've played a lot of Baldur's Gates.
Yeah. So I'm unclear how much either of those adventures actually take place in Baldur's Gate. So-
Baldur's Gate 3 does take place mostly, not
Okay.
all. Well, a big arc of it takes place. Like the third act all takes place in Baldur's Gate, basically.
I would recommend the comics as well. I don't know if you've read them, but there's a series of comics, and there was 2 collections of them, and I can't remember their names whatsoever. But they were entertaining and featured some of the characters from at least the early games, I think. My other recommendation, while we're doing media recommendations, is a book called The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Leong. Which is a kind of cozy fantasy-ish, not a million miles away from Legends and Lattes or something like that, but just about a fortune teller who will only tell small, unimportant fortunes and wanders around the world having an adventure.
You will stub your toe this afternoon.
Oh.
I think it is a lot of things are of that kind of nature. But there is a reason. But it's the sort of found family thing where she eventually builds up all these people around her, and adventure is had. But
Yeah,
it's really nice as a book. It's kind of, if you're looking for something that will make you feel better about the world.
Always. You're telling me my current plan of reading the news every night before I go to sleep is until I'm too depressed to do anything else is not great? Is that what you're telling me?
I think yes. I think that it was like one of those things where I opened the BBC News earlier today and I went, oh, okay.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I had that rare moment this morning where I turned on. We woke up at like 8, which is pretty late for us, and I turned on the radio, and the NPR news briefing at the top of the hour started. And my wife and I both went, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's been a week of
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
I mean,
Really.
more than a week, some might argue.
Yes, one might say it
If
started
you're
in
here in America, we've been here for at least a month.
400 years.
Yeah, but possibly longer.
Yeah, fair.
Sometimes I'm able to forget about it until people remind me on podcasts of how old certain people are. So
Yeah, that was real. That's some real energy. Sorry, I
Yep.
haven't published that episode yet, so we're just alluding to things that have not been released.
that's okay.
Yeah. Anything else? We were going through before you arrived, Dan. We were just sort of talking TV shows.
This is just Tony and James' standard catch up is like, what have you been watching? Explain yourself.
I continue to watch a bad-ish USA show from
That
the
sounds like you.
mid-2000s.
That sounds like you, Dan. That's aggressively.
We all have our coping
Well, Dan,
mechanisms.
there is a 50% chance that I've seen this show, whatever it is.
I don't think you have seen it actually.
Okay.
Is a show called Graceland.
I've seen it.
You've seen it?
I saw
Really?
Graceland when it aired. Graceland
Wow.
is a show. It's such a USA show.
It's such a
aggressively-
USA show.
The
I
premise
enjoyed
of Graceland
immensely.
is like people from a bunch of different branches of law enforcement have to live in party house together to catch drug dealers, basically. And there's
They're all undercover agents working
They're all
out of
undercover-
a fancy beach house in
Yeah,
Malibu
they're all
or
undercover
whatever.
as cool people.
Is this a reality TV show?
It is
No.
Sounds like
not.
No. But no, I watched that when it was on. That only got like 1 or 2 seasons, right?
3 seasons.
Really? Wow.
Yep.
Maybe I didn't
Of
watch
13,
all.
13 episodes each. There are some really
Yeah.
good recurring actors in it who show
Mhm.
up. I particularly appreciate one of the reasons that I like after I don't remember how I came across this show. I think it was I saw a mention of it somewhere. But my personal favorites are Pedro Pascal is in it.
Wow.
For the first-
Before he was Pedro Pascal.
Yes,
Um,
he is Tony. He is a very pivotal character in this show, despite not being a main character.
You know
he
he's
is
in one scene in Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah.
This is after that because this is what 2013 to 2015.
Okay.
He is a he is an FBI agent who gets killed in the first
Oh.
season, and that reverberations from that go through the entire show, basically. I appreciate in the recurring cast list in Wikipedia, Jake Carnes is in it as their boss, but only in the pilot. He never reappears.
Oh,
And then I cannot pronounce his name, but Gabenga Akinagbe, I think, who is from The Wire, played Chris Partlow on The Wire,
Oh,
is
wow.
a fairly major like bad guy in the first season. And then Lawrence Gillard, who played D'Angelo Barksdale, is also as an FBI boss in the third season. And I'm like, yeah, all these people show up in like later and have better careers, I think. But it is fun to see them kind of slumming it, I feel like.
Yeah, they got a paycheck. That's cool, especially I feel like The Wire is basically split between like British actors that did pretty well and American actors who unfortunately didn't like get super picked up for other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of them pop up in other places, and I'm always delayed to see them, but they are so indelibly linked with those characters. I have a hard
Yes.
time like moving my brain, being like, ah, you're not this guy. Like my favorite is he's showed up in plenty of things since then. I'm suddenly just blanked out his name, but Cuddy from The Wire,
Yep.
who then
He's
showed
in a
up
lot
in
of stuff.
the Expanse. He showed up on Arrow.
He's
He's
in The
been in
Walking Dead.
Superman and Lois, like all those things. Chad
Did he-
Coleman. Chad
Did
Coleman.
he do the voice in Left 4 Dead, or is that character just a ripoff of him?
Good question.
Because there's a character that's like basically him.
I'm looking because now
Oh.
I know exactly who you're talking about,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yep.
not sure. I have also recently watched. I just finished watching Superman and Lois, the last show that's related to the Arrowverse. on
It's
the
finally
CW.
dead.
Is it technically Arrowverse, or it's Arrowverse?
No,
adjacent?
it is not in the main continuity of the rest
Okay.
of those shows. It's
I
actually
watched-
really good, honestly. Like
Okay, I watched the first 2 seasons of it and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I
On my
same,
go
and then
back
I
someday.
I
I
fell
think the
off.
third and fourth seasons are actually better.
Okay.
Like there's less. It really pivots into much more being like family drama with occasional superpowers than like, and they I think get rid of some of the high school drama stuff,
Mhm.
but like they really pivot hard into like a family drama angle, and I think it kind of works. And I think the last season's really good. Michael Cudlitz shows up as
cool.
Lex Luthor, and in the last season, and he is appropriately menacing.
I will
So-
definitely check it out at some point. I did because I feel like there was not a ton of new TV that I was super excited by. So I did go, and I think Dan, you had recommended it at some point. I went and watched the old, which I'd never seen, the Netflix Punisher show, which I
Yeah.
thought season 1 was good, and then season 2 exists. And I moved on from that to watching the third seasons of Jessica Jones, which is fine. Like I get
Yeah,
it,
it's
was-
very fine.
it's-
Yes.
It's like, okay, I see why I never bothered to watch this till now. So yeah.
I mean, I think some of those. I mean, even the second season of what's the terrible one called?
Iron Fist. I don't think
Yes.
that's not on my. That doesn't make my list.
The second season was actually watchable. The first season was not.
The first- yeah.
But the
They
second
just
season,
really did not know what they were doing with that show.
No.
well, it ended like the last episode seemed to be the point where they had figured out what they were going to do with the show, and then
Oh, of season 2, yeah,
Yeah.
like that, and then they're like, "Oh, guess we're never going to make another." Yeah,
yeah,
No.
Um,
That's
but
a
maybe
long time to wait.
well, 10 years later, these people will turn up in some MCU
Hmm.
spin-off, probably.
there's a non-zero chance that Finn Jones gets brought back, but I think probably less than maybe some of the other ones.
Well,
Almost all the other ones are getting at least bit parts in Daredevil, whatever it is, Born Again. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, John Bernthal, and I don't think Luke Cage. They have not brought back.
That might in part be, but like I think he's on a big network show now, right?
No, he was on a CBS show, but it just ended.
Oh, it did. Okay. All right. I thought it was like maybe
Um,
he's too cool to need to slum it on
No, I
those
think
shows.
he's talked about he would come back. You know,
Okay.
and as any of these people say, because they would,
Yeah.
they'd like to get paid.
Yes.
Mike Coulter.
Yeah.
Yes, the smart ones say, I would be happy to return for your thing if the money works out and scheduling, and not, I don't like you.
Yeah, I think there's a non-zero chance that most of those people will come back in one form or another. I think just because if you're doing, the Daredevil continuity and sort of bringing that in, then like you're sort of tacitly acknowledging all those people exist. And if you want to use those characters, I think the casting was not the problem with any of those shows, except for possibly Finn Jones.
Yeah.
But that is a problem with that character more than even that's a problem with the actor.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly. What was the other people in Iron Fist? Because there were good characters in that.
Yeah, there was like
Jessica
a sidekick
Henwick.
who
Yes.
could have maybe had her own show.
I knew that's who you were thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Colleen Wing and Misty Knight and whatever, team up things that you do with that. And yeah, I would like to see those people get another chance at it. But well, let's see what the Daredevil show is like. Is that this early next year?
March.
Okay. That should be interesting. I think
it's heavily anticipated, and I think that's one of those things where I feel like they understand the gravity of what they're doing.
But it also is the thing where they like shot half the thing and then
then
threw
scrapped
everything
it.
up in the
Yeah.
air.
Yeah.
So
Oh, Marvel.
so they'll probably. I mean, I guess I'd rather them do that than
Stick
Well,
with.
well, like rather than like sort of film it all and then to say, well, we're not going to release it now.
Well, as I told you earlier, James, then it can live forever in your imagination and can be the best thing ever. You don't have to grapple with the reality of whether or not it was actually good.
Like Batgirl, yeah, the Batgirl, the best Bat film
Ever made. Ever made.
Ever made.
Prove
Disprove
me
it.
wrong.
Disprove it, yeah.
Prove me wrong, Warner Brothers. I would like that, there's like they just take somebody into like a sealed vault, show them the film, and then they leave.
No, they destroyed all copies, just like George Lucas destroyed the negatives of the original New Hope.
Yeah, I do not believe that big corporations never destroy things.
Oh,
They just...
okay. Pitch. Ready?
Uh-huh.
Far enough along that we're going to have to eventually recast Indiana Jones. And you get farther and farther to the point of like having increasingly ridiculous things that he's looking for. But what if he needs to recover the original print of A New Hope?
I mean, like he was in
how
the
old
60s.
is he in the 70s then?
I mean, he's pretty old.
Yeah.
What-
okay.
Reboot it. It's soft reboot, guys. Come on.
What
Oh,
decade
okay,
did
so
he
it's-
reach?
It's
No,
Indiana
no.
Jones Jr.
He's Indiana Jones Jr. And
Junior. Wait, he's already Junior. Damn it. He's
Well,
Henry
in-
Jones the third.
the third. And instead of being an archaeology professor, he's like a media studies professor. Yeah.
I don't see a problem. Greenlight it.
Yeah, he's got a partner who's like an archivist librarian, and they want to save culture.
Sorry, I'm just picturing him holding a film reel going, this belongs in a museum.
Yeah. And
I'm
at
sorry.
the end, guys, the final boss is like he appears out of a frozen coffin. It is like an animatronic Walt Disney that he has to fight while everything's on fire around him.
I think the problem of using the tagline "We just want to save culture"
Yeah.
is that could go, very badly, very quickly.
I see no problems.
Yeah, how could that? I don't see.
I mean, I would like to see the heist movie where they break into the Warner Brothers vault to get a copy of Batgirl. Like,
I think it's in the water tower. I'm not sure.
Oh no, they gave the Animaniacs have it.
Yeah.
That seems appropriate. Well, wasn't that one of those films leaked? There was like it was a Scooby Doo or something.
Oh no, you think of the Acme Coyote
The
versus
Acme,
Acme?
Yes,
that leak?
that was it. Yes, I believe.
I don't know if it's. I don't. Yeah, well, I mean, I would not be surprised just because it's hard to keep any of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
What?
A mutual friend of ours, Tony, posted a link somewhere to asking ChatGPT. This is the question he asks him. In the Arrowverse, the Flash travels to different timelines and he travels to different worlds, like different Earths. Are different Earths the same as different timelines? And there is a lengthy answer from ChatGPT
Wow.
specifically about the Arrowverse.
Okay. I will tell you, I recently I have been going to the gym and I needed something kind of brainless to watch while I'm on a treadmill. I went and watched the final season of The Flash, which
No,
Oh,
it was
I can report nothing about
it was.
it because
I
it's
watched. I don't think I even watched all of it. What I
I watched
saw
all of
was
it. It was so
mostly
pointless.
unmemorable and
I,
bad.
Yeah,
I,
it was so like contractually obligated, and even by CW standards, the writing was pretty bad.
I think I dropped out like this a season or two before that.
Yeah,
Um, do they bring back lots of people at the end
they
of
do
it?
bring
Yeah,
back
Ollie shows
lots
up.
of
I watched the
people.
episode where they brought
Dan,
back Oliver.
Dan, technically the spirit.
Yeah, sorry, the spirit. Yeah.
But yes, I mean, Stephen Amell comes back, and they do bring back. I mean, spoilers for the finale of The Flash, which if you haven't seen at this point, you don't care about. They do brag back in the final fight, which is just a big fight with people running. Every Flash villain version of Zoom, negative, Reverse Flash, Hunter Zolomon, everyone, it's all the evil speedsters team up. Uh,
God,
which
did I even watch this? Now I'm struggling to remember.
I mean, it's not very good.
But if you
Um,
told me that happened in like season 5, I would also believe you.
Yes,
yeah,
correct. Yes,
it,
every
it
season.
mainly hammers through a flaw with the show, even when the show was like kind of good, which was like having all the bad guys just be evil speedsters is really boring.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
um, it's hard. Um, so.
Someday they will try it again, but
Hmm.
Yeah,
I
I
do.
don't know if they
Yeah.
is there a Flash like a Flash in the new DC movies
No,
thing
because
yet?
they got rid of the
Well,
last one.
yes.
Just had a movie like a year ago,
Was
which
that a
I
year
did
ago?
watch.
I
I have not
watched
seen
it
that
too
one.
because I only watched it because they filmed a large chunk of it in Glasgow.
That's
You're
your
not
criteria
you're
for a
not
lot of things, which
required
is,
to do that.
yeah.
You realize?
I kind of am.
Are you on the Glasgow Tourism Board? Is that
Well, we just
are you getting a tax break for doing that? What's going on?
well, I mean, indirectly, possibly. They've been filming the Edgar Wright Running Man movie around the city, and well, literally around the corner from where I
Mhm,
live. And so, yes, I did go and see that and see the
mhm.
see the.
Why is your neighborhood so photogenic?
I think because it looks like a dystopian post-apocalyptic. Um, background or something. Actually, it's you know what it's supposed to be? It's supposed to be Boston. So
Oh, and Boston was not available.
Boston was too expensive. So Glasgow is Boston for this film.
Oh, good. Well, I'm
Fair.
glad to hear we've outsourced.
I'm sure they'll just Photoshop in some appropriate skyline and but yeah, I like the look of the film from what I can tell from the cars and the props because it has a very 70s 80s sci-fi look to it.
I don't think I've ever seen the original Running
No,
Man.
me
Is
neither.
that a Schwarzenegger movie?
Yeah,
Yes.
I believe
Uh,
it's based on a book that might be slightly less silly because in
okay.
this one it was very much
I have
Arnie.
seen very few Schwarzenegger movies.
Well, if you've seen any of the ones where he dispatches somebody and makes a witty quip, then
You've seen
that
them all?
well, you've seen. I think The Running Man was pretty good. It was one of these things about, like corrupt giant corporations and governments and things.
But we solved all those problems.
We did. We
There's
did.
nothing left to say about them. Um, I'm a little
Uh,
surprised Edgar Wright is doing something that's like a remake, but I assume he'll do an interesting
I
Edgar
think
Wright
my
spin on
assumption is he's going back to, I think it's a book that it's based on,
it.
and
Okay.
doing a faithful thing, but it has the kind of what the future would have looked like if you were in the 70s or 80s
Mhm,
look to it. Very old cars with like glowing neon things attached to them and
mhm.
doors falling off. It looked like sort of Escape from New York kind of thing.
Well, in the original, it's based on a Stephen King
Mhm.
Ah, there you
book,
go.
um, or at least written under his pseudonym Richard Bachman, but it is I believe, a Stephen King book.
Well, um, I can only speak to the quality of the cars that they
Yeah,
have in on
you
the
can only,
street.
and the city in which they are using as a backdrop for
Yes.
post-apocalyptic Boston. Okay, that's
Yeah.
fair. Well,
But yeah, I do enjoy the uh so we there was a meeting called in the local library to basically from the film production crew saying, yeah, we're going to take over these streets and you can't park here and all this sort of thing. So we went along to the meeting to find out what it was. And they basically were like, well, we weren't going to tell you, but we forgot to redact it on the sheet that went out to all the houses. So it's the Running Man.
yeah, they didn't do a thing where they have a clever placeholder name for it or anything.
No, and
Um,
like if people went up to the barriers and asked what it was, they would say, "Oh, can't tell you." But we
mhm.
wandered through, and there was a large tank of what I assume was like propane or something for making explosions that was labeled "Running Man Use Only" or something.
Deep
Uh,
cover.
This is Tony. This might be a relationship to you,
Oh no.
or a question for you. But I'm looking up now because I stumbled across it as I found myself going down a uh, a rabbit hole about Richard Bachman.
Mhm.
So Richard Bachman is Stephen King's pseudonym and published several books under that in like I want to say the 80s, maybe early 90s. As I was scrolling down, it mentions King portrays an unrelated character named Richard Bachman in the third season of Sons of Anarchy.
Wow. Okay. I don't remember that. Sons of Anarchy has a lot of weird kind of stunt casting, and many of them I tended to be oblivious to. But interesting.
Yeah, I don't know
Um,
I found that very bizarre because
yeah.
he's not a guy who you think of popping up a lot as a.
Yeah. What? So I'm not like super up to speed on Stephen King stuff. Why does Stephen King have like another name that's not
Oh,
Stephen
this
King?
was in the 70s and 80s, I think,
So is
because
this
they
like
were.
before he made it, or
He was
or he
fairly
wanted
popular
to,
already.
or he needed a separate name for when he was writing not horror, or
what
So,
was
according to Wikipedia, at the beginning of his career, the general view among publishers was that an author was limited to one book per year. Since publishing more would be unacceptable to the public. I don't have a citation on that. I don't know why. You wanted to write under another name in order to increase his publication without saturating the market for the Stephen King brand and convince his publisher to print novels under a
so
pseudonym.
is we the same publisher though? It was right.
Signet Books, yeah.
Hmm.
was
Dan, you don't have that problem, right? Where you need to create a false identity to
Yeah,
publish
my
multiple
pseudonym
books a
is
year.
Stephen King.
Oh,
It's going great.
nice. Um,
was Maximum Overdrive one of those ones?
Let's see which ones are on there.
I will just
'Cause
tell
the-
you,
No, Rage, The Long Walk, Road Work, The Running Man, Thinner, the Bachman books is a collection, and The Regulators, which I have heard of, and Blaze.
I was generally
2007.
enjoying this Lego set until I got to the part where it's like, now
Now, but-
make eight identical spider legs for this robot, and I'm like, okay, thanks. Um, sorry, Dan.
That happens. I don't. You guys, neither of you are big. I'm not a huge Stephen King fan, but I have read.
I
read
read a
Dark Tower
bunch
and
of the short
I read-
story stuff
I don't think
when
I
was
ever
young.
read a Stephen King. I've seen some Stephen King adaptations, but not very many.
I'm not a horror person usually,
yeah.
although I will say, yeah, The Dark Tower being the exception for me, which I've read all of. The Dark Tower is super trippy. Includes, among other things, Stephen King appears in The Dark Tower as a character. It is very weird, but kind of great. Honestly, I do think it is a kind of a magnum opus for him.
I have only seen the movie, so
Oh no, I know that movie is not well regarded.
I know
There are
but
things I liked about it. I thought Idris Elba was a fine bit of casting, but it is not really in any relationship to the book, like except in the barest of plot. Like, okay, this is kind of what happens in the plot, but it's not very good.
wow.
Also, it is an incredibly huge, like, world-spanning movie or a series, and like you don't really get a taste for that in like 1-2 hour movie. Like, it doesn't come across feeling as epic as the series does. So I think there is some rumors that they're going to do a TV show at some point, but it's
Seems like somebody should spend $1 zillion on that to try and make it their next Game of Thrones.
you know who is developing that in
Was it
December
Amazon?
2022? It's Mike Flanagan, who
Okay.
did the Midnight Mass and the
Oh,
Fall
I
of the
would
House
say-
of Usher and all that
So
stuff.
I watched
So
both of those. Again, not a horror person. I enjoyed both of those shows Midnight Mass is very, very good, and House of Usher is interesting. Um,
Yeah, so he is
I actually
apparently
watched Midnight
developing
Mass
it.
again this kind of Halloween as my because I don't like horror things. Midnight Mass is very good. I would recommend it. And it has again, not knowing Stephen King stuff, but it has kind of Stephen King vibes to it, in that it's set in like a kind of coastal rural place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Currently, though, he is doing. He has got a ton of stuff on his plate. Like he's directing an Exorcist movie, I
Oh,
guess.
jeez.
He is doing a television adaptation of Carrie for Amazon. So like, yeah, I think he. I mean, that's the other issue is like doing this. Like, you can have the rights to it, but like convincing somebody to make a show out of it requires
Yeah, I mean, there's
someone's got to
like
spend a
three
lot
or
of
four
money
companies that will
that
do
have
that.
variously at some point also owned this too, right? Like, there's been
Yeah,
several versions.
Amazon had the rights to do it and then decided not to, so it seems
Yes.
unlikely that they would go
Yeah.
forward with it.
You
And
never
then
know.
you've got Apple and you've got Netflix.
I'd like to see Apple do it because I feel like they spend the money and they don't care usually.
I was just thinking about Jason Momoa's C the other day, which I'll never watch.
I will tell you that I think that show is actually good.
I don't care.
No, it's like after the first,
I
you know,
just think that
it's
they spent so much money on making it and marketing it, and then it was going to be their big hit, and then little Ted Lasso came by and ate everyone's lunch.
I still think it's actually good. It like
That's fine.
opens up into this big world after like the first season.
And no one will know.
It has a sort of Game of Thrones vibe to it in terms of, you know, lots of political backstabbing and then big battles and things. I think it was good and it has this, you know, what actually happened and people wandering around having adventures and falling into, you know, the kind of typical thing of we have found this small society in the middle of this wasteland and everything is perfect here. Let us stay here. Oh no, they eat people.
Oh no. Yeah.
You know, it's that kind of
It's always
vibe to it.
something.
I don't actually remember if the people ate people, but
That's
I
just-
think
yeah.
you know it's and it's got weirdly many people from Stargate Atlantis in it. Like Jason Momoa being one, but oh god, what are their names? Anyway, doesn't matter. Nobody cares. But I think that show, I will defend that show. I watched the whole thing.
Okay.
I mean, I think we've got. Well, I mean, Silo is currently running.
Yeah, I'm a few episodes behind on it.
Severance comes back soon. I feel like I need to go back and rewatch season 1 of Severance because
Yeah, I was thinking I at least need to rewatch the last episode.
Read a really good summary or something.
Well, yeah, I was gonna rewatch the finale of that because I think the finale of that is definitely one of those like possibly best hours of TV like in the last 10 years. It's just so tense and so good.
Have you watched the current like the trailer that came out yesterday?
I did not yet. I have not had time.
It's there's a lot of stuff in that which hasn't been any of the previous trailers in terms of what the setup seems to be. And it certainly implies a lot of stuff about what happened after the ending. And it's like, okay, this could be interesting or it could go badly. But I mean, that was another one of these was quite troubled productions from the sounds of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff.
But I look forward to seeing that. You know, we might be like falling out of the peak TV era, or like we get 1 or 2 of these shows a year rather than 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. I certainly remember being at a point where I was like, oh, there is too much really good television to watch. And now I am not in that position anymore.
Yeah, I don't remember what I like. Honestly, we've kind of dialed like I think we've been not watching as much stuff in the last few weeks. So we're behind on a bunch of things.
We canceled our Paramount Plus because we weren't really watching anything other than Lower Decks, and there was nothing else coming, and like the next week there was a Black Friday deal for a 50% off year, and we're like, fine, okay.
I get you.
You know,
I do
it's like
want to.
I won't spend £100 to just watch Star Trek, but I will spend £50 to just
I was
watch
gonna
Star Trek.
say, I mean, I'm only using it as a Star Trek engine, but we watch enough Star Trek that'll do it.
I do want to watch
uh,
the one that they just debuted, the Agency Spy, the with Michael
Oh,
Fassbender.
you do love spy stuff,
I
Dan.
do love spy stuff. It's true.
I was thinking we were still talking Star Trek, and I was like, Section 31? No, right, okay.
Not yet, but soon.
Yeah. Um, lots of people seem to be like not exactly enthused by that trailer for the Section 31 movie, but
Also,
Yeah.
haven't watched it. The
I
most
looked,
recent one.
it looked fine. I mean, it's like I will watch Michelle Yeoh in anything, and
Yeah, I think people always get mad about what is Star Trek. It does, I mean, it looks like an action-y movie with a little bit of espionage stuff in it, and I get the feeling, that's not your standard Star Trek story, but I don't know. I think it'll be fine.
yeah, I mean,
It's one 2-hour movie. Its existence will not hurt you.
Lower Decks is not the same thing as Next Generation
Well,
is not the
it
same
is
thing
not.
as whatever.
That's just the thing. I mean, some of these, I think these franchises, the strength of them is that they can contain
Yes,
various things. And we
multitudes.
talk about this a lot on the Complicated Profession, like about Star Wars shows, but like that's kind of where I'm at, is like you can tell, you can use the Star Wars setting or the Star Trek setting or the Marvel setting or DC setting to tell any number of stories. It's just a lot of times people get lazy and do it in the same.
I think there is a little bit, maybe Dan, I'll push back on that a little bit and say I think it is a little bit trickier in that I think Star Wars is a little bit more about a specific thing. Or sorry, Star Trek. Yeah, Star Trek is a little bit more about a specific, like, I don't know, worldview or perception of reality. Whereas Star Wars is a little bit more of a place. So I don't know, and maybe some of that is just because Star Wars has so many video games and comic books and other things that, like, I feel like you can tell any kind of story in the Star Wars universe, and I guess you can tell any kind of story in the Star Trek universe, but it kind of starts to feel like maybe it's not a Star Trek story. I don't know. I mean, even it's a little bit tricky, for example, and I think Prodigy kind of played with it in an interesting way. It's like, can you tell a Star Trek story that is not about Starfleet? And it's like, I don't know, maybe.
I mean, Prodigy kind of like, well, it's not about Starfleet, but we have a Starfleet ship and we have a Starfleet captain, kind
And
of.
it kind of is about Starfleet.
And
In some ways, it's most about Starfleet.
Yeah, and it's about what is the ethos of Starfleet in terms of, because yeah, a lot of Star Trek stories are basically about, basically how do the people in this organization approach difficult problems and things like that.
Well, it's an ethos thing, right?
Yeah.
Like,
there's no ethos to Star Wars. So
well, I mean, there
Yeah,
is in the
there
sense that,
is.
like, yeah,
there's, I mean, it's, can you tell Star Wars stories without Jedi? Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can,
And in
it
fact,
turns out.
In fact, please do. So, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
I
just
was
it.
trying to-
I mean, yeah.
I was trying to work out what the timeline is on Skeleton Crew, and it's like, who is like running around the galaxy at this point?
It's the same as all the other ones.
Yep.
Not all of
Right.
them, but it's the same as the Mandalorian, basically.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
like, are we just going to have the Mandalorian and Grogu walk through the back of some scene?
There is, I mean, I don't know if you noticed, there is a character from The Mandalorian who appears in.
I did notice that.
Okay, yep,
The piratey person.
Vane the pirate.
I was like, is that the same character or is that just the same race? And I am
yeah,
like,
are you being space racist?
space racist about this? But
It's
I
just
thought it was.
racist. It's
Yeah.
just racist.
Well,
Yeah. I mean, I think Star Trek has done different things. I mean, Deep Space Nine had quite a different feel to all the other shows because it was all like nothing works and let's bend the rules slightly or a lot.
which some people hated.
And I
Well,
think
and
it's
Voyager was, let's go off into like a place
Mm-hmm.
that we don't have anybody else and it's just us. And,
Mhm.
I think they've all tried different takes to a certain degree. But yeah, you still have to. That's the trouble. Is walking that line of like you want to do something new and different, but you still have to have something that's recognizably connected to it in order to, or else just why not do a totally different thing?
Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, why not make this your own science
I
fiction
like
show.
the Strange New Worlds because it's like, what if the show was fun? Which is, something that they haven't really done
Or
for
what
a
if we
while.
did the original Star Trek, but we had a budget?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, but like we'll have episodes which, have basically alien chest bursters and terrible things happening. But also, let's have a musical episode. And
Yep. James, you can just say that you're a sucker for a musical episode. It's okay. We know.
I
who
mean,
you
I
are.
am a sucker for a musical episode, but I'm now thinking of The Magicians, which had some really good musical episodes. That's another show that the first season was not great, and then it became extremely good. Yeah. Anyway, they got my £50. They've got me for another year. I will watch all the Star Trek.
I'm almost at the. We've been rewatching Star Trek, a project that we started a very long time ago. Because did you know there's a lot of Star Trek.
Mhm.
We are in the final season of Star Trek Voyager, which I am actually appreciating a lot more than because I didn't watch all of it when I was a youngin. And it's there's some good Star Trek in Star Trek Voyager. It's
I think
as with many Star Treks, it took a while to find its legs.
I definitely watched Voyager. I think I watched some of Voyager off VHS tapes out of a Blockbuster, which
Wow.
dates it.
Yep.
But
Wow, did you make a payphone call outside that Blockbuster while
yes, I did. Well,
called your broker and told them to buy some like Microsoft stock or something?
and through my AOL account.
Yeah.
But I have only watched it at the time. I have not gone back to Voyager. Like, I think all the other series, maybe not Enterprise. So Voyager and Enterprise, I think, are the two that I haven't rewatched.
I have not watched Enterprise, which we are on. Once this season of Voyager ends, I guess we have to. And also, nobody's watched the animated series, so except the people who make Lower Decks.
So when you say you've not watched Enterprise, do you mean you have never watched Enterprise?
I mean, I watched the first half of the first episode of Enterprise on the night it aired, and I was like, I don't care for this.
I think I watched about the first half of the first season.
Wow.
Like the third season, just before they get cancelled, is again.
I've heard it's good. Yeah.
Is actually a good season of Star Trek.
Isn't it 5? Isn't it 5 seasons?
I think it's 3 for Enterprise.
I think it's longer than that. 4. It's 4. We split the difference.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I think the last season and maybe some of the previous season, because I think one of the seasons ends. Spoiler for one of the seasons of them, I think, going back to Earth, and it's overrun by space Nazi aliens.
Mm-hmm.
We've all been there.
Mm-hmm. But no, I think it was again one of these things that they finally were figured out what they were doing, and then it got cancelled.
Yeah, it was a different time where you could make like 100 episodes of a show before having to have a plan. So.
Well, it had Star Trek on it, and it was UPN, and that was literally all they owned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, friends, we've been chatting for about 75 minutes. I still have a whole other bag of Legos to go, including the bag that has Bo-Katan Kryze in it. But I think I'm going to save that for another time, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Spider Tank. I'm enjoying the Spider Tank. They use the little kind of rubbery bits that have a flex to them, so that the Spider Tank has kind of a little bounce to it, which is kind of neat for making it spider around. I appreciate that. So
I'm impressed that you got through all of that without saying Spider Tank does whatever a Spider Tank
does. Yeah. Well, Dan and James, thank you for joining me. It's been a long time since we had a Lego chat. We'll do one. We've covered important video game and what TV we're watching news, as we are wont to do.
It's critical content for everybody out there.
Well, we can come back and do the next bags, and
we will. Or I'll get another set. So if you have strong feelings about what set I should get next, you can find me on Mastodon and Blue Sky and yell at me. And I'm not even gonna say like buy me a Lego set, because it's like the distance between me And me buying a Lego set is basically someone saying you should buy that Lego set. So it's not a far walk. So yeah.
A lot of sets coming out January 1st. So
Oh, I have not looked ahead. So
yeah.
cool. All right. Thank you for thanks to Dan and James for joining me. Thank you for listening or watching. You can find us all on various podcasts and various other places on the internet. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. How do I make this not do